In our newest BlueSkyPlan release, we have added several additional orthodontic locators to the software. This means that after you prepare your aligner digital tooth setup, you can export the models along with a aligner trim curve that can go to a variety of different milling machines created by different companies and have the mills automatically trim your aligners. This is Michael from Blue Sky Bio, and in this tutorial video, I will quickly go through the process of doing a digital tooth setup and then generating the aligner trim curve to export for a milling machine. We will click on orthodontics, aligners, and import models. We are holding down the shift key. You could also select one model, import it, and then import the other model. I find the simplest process just to be holding down the shift key, left clicking to multi-select the upper and the lower, and clicking on OK. This model is a maxilla. We'll change the patient name and then click Continue to draw alignment. BlueSkyPlan is now running automatic annotation, which means it will now automatically place 2 dots on each tooth and will detect the tooth number for each tooth. And all of this is being done automatically. Okay, we can now see the results. If we want to modify the placement of any of these dots, just grab and drag with your left mouse button. After you've confirmed correct placement and correct annotation, you could go ahead and click on Continue. If you need to make any modifications other than just grabbing and dragging the dots, you could go ahead and erase the automatic annotation, but we're not going to get into that for this tutorial video. I'm now going to click Continue with Mandible. I see that the second jaw has been annotated correctly as well, and I'm going to click on Continue to Teeth Segmentation. This software is now automatically closing the relevant models. We'll give it just a second. And we could see that the software has now automatically segmented the teeth from the models. If we need to make any modifications, we could simply click on the relevant tooth and then either modify the placement or redraw the curve holding down the shift key and the left mouse button. And we won't get into this into more detail in this tutorial video. I'm going to now click Continue with Mandible. I'll now confirm that the segmentation has been done correctly for the mandible as well, and then click Continue to Model Trimming. What we see on the screen right now is an automatic trim curve that is used to clean up the model and remove excess material and excess areas of the model. I'm going to review the curve, modify if necessary just by grabbing and dragging, and then clicking Continue with Mandible. Here as well, we could fine-tune this section over here, and then I will click Continue to Teeth Moving. Okay, we're at the point of creating our digital tooth setup. I'm just going to snap all teeth in the maxilla and snap all teeth in the mandible. And for the purpose of this tutorial video, of course, you could go ahead and fine-tune. You should go ahead and fine-tune the final placement. But for the purpose of this video, I'm just going to click Continue to edit steps. Okay, we've added some great new functionality in here, including the ability to duplicate a step. The green, of course, is indicating that the particular tooth that's highlighted is moving during that step, and some other new functionality. But for the purpose of this video, again, I'm going to choose the option here to design aligner trim curve, and then click Continue to Design Aligner Trim Curve. Okay, so now we're at this step where the software has automatically proposed and generated a trim curve. So we have our 2 arches. You could toggle back and forth between them using the buttons on the right. And then we have a few different options. So first of all, if you want to tweak the curve that's given, you could just grab and drag and move those points. Now you have an option between continuous or scalloped. Right now we have continuous selected, but you could obviously choose scallop, click Reset Curve, and you could see how that changes. And then you do the same for the maxilla. We have the trim margin, which is the distance below the gingival margin that the curve is set. So if we want to raise it or lower it, we can do that directly from here as well. And here we have our different locators that we've added. So right now you can see the locator. If you want to hide it, we have the show and the hide button. And you could select the relevant locator that you would like to be exported together with the model. So before we proceed, let me just point out that there are various options. If you go to Tools, Preferences, Orthodontics, we have a whole section on the aligner trim curve. So here again is the drop down, and this allows you to set the defaults. So instead of having to change it every time, you could change it here. So automatic button placement is not connected to this. It's regarding placing the attachments, the buttons automatically. Then we have the curve shape, which is obviously connected, continuous scalloped. The type of aligner, aligner trim margin, aligner offset, which is actually if you're designing the aligners directly in BlueSkyPlan, but we're not going to get into that now. And then we have the different options for the offset and the thickness. And here we have, regarding the trim curve, we have the delimiter, the extension, and the curve point spacing. So these last three as well are options according to whichever company's mill that you're going to be using. You could see what their specifications are regarding what should be the spacing of the points, how the file should end, and how to separate the data for them, if it's a space, if it's a comma, or something else. Anyway, so these are the various settings that you could set, and these will be your default settings, so that whenever you export the aligner trim curve, it will be directly according to the proper specifications. So I'm going to go ahead and click cancel this for now. And once I've selected my locator for both jaws, then I could just simply go ahead and continue to export. And now on the export screen, you have the option to export the models, and you have the checkbox with the locator. And again, you could change last second the locator type you want to export. And you have the option of export aligner trim curve. So in addition to exporting the models, it will export a digital file for the aligner trim curve, which will be sent to your milling machine, and that will be instructions for the milling machine on where and how to exactly automatically trim the aligners. So you could simply select the relevant jaw, go ahead and click on export, and then repeat the process for the opposing arch. Okay, so just to demonstrate, I'm going to click the export maxilla. I have the models, locator, and trim curve all selected. I'm going to click on export. What it's asking now is for confirmation, essentially, if we want to be adding a vertical base for printing, and if we've embossed or engraved the relevant model number and patient name onto the models. So just to show that, let's click no, not yet. It brings us back to here. And I'm not going to get into details because it's a topic for a different video, but you could add that vertical base for printing. You can emboss or engrave text directly onto the model. I'm actually going to click now remove to remove it for now. And if I go ahead and click on export, let's click yes, proceed to export. Let's select where I want to save these exported models. Oh, and by the way, if you haven't yet checked out BlueSkyMonitoring.com, remote patient monitoring, the platform is currently free. Go ahead and check that out. And that's as well a topic for another video. But let's select a location for my export on desktop, new folder, trim curve export, and I'll click OK. And the software is now performing the export. Okay, and what we could see here is that there's a folder containing the exported models. In addition, for every model, there is the aligner trim curve file according to the specifications that were in the properties. We saw the specification was to have an XYZ suffix, so that's what's added here. And these files will then go to the milling machine as instructions for the mill, how to automatically trim the liners. So we could repeat the process for the mandible simply by selecting mandible. Again, models, locator, export the aligner trim curve, confirm confirm the locator type right down here. And in our situation, again, I'm going to click no, not yet, just to actually remove the base here. And then let's export. Yes, proceed to export. Select the same folder and go ahead and click on OK. Okay, that process has been completed successfully. We can now see the aligner trim curve files for the mandible and the maxilla.